Hello everyone, it's Nicole. Welcome back to my channel and another paper crafting video tutorial. Today, I'm going to show you the easiest way to create an amazing crackle background on a card or for any kind of card. Now there's a couple of different background stamps from Simon Says Stamp that I love to use, but we're going to use the reverse crackle today. I'm also using a ton of products from Mama Elephant, including the Bibimbap. I don't know how to say that. I apologize. I believe it's a Korean dish. We're using Like Family, Celebrating You, the Summer Floaties, and then like this torn edge. This is called the deckled frames. So we are going to start with the deckled frame today. I have die cut the largest size from black cardstock. Now this is going to work really with any kind of frame that you have, whether you want to mask off the outer edge or not. I am masking off with Post-it tape from the stitching line to the outer edge of the pieces. But you could stamp the whole thing. Any kind of background die is going to be awesome for this. Then I am taking the Simon Says Stamp reverse crackle background and I'm placing it over my stamp in my MISTI. I've removed the insert from my MISTI since this is a red rubber stamp, and I am making sure to ink this up really, really well with white pigment ink. If you guys have been around for a while, you know I absolutely love white pigment ink, like text backgrounds and for all kinds of different things, clouds, but look how amazing this looks on black cardstock. Isn't that awesome? Now we're going to remove the mask, and that instantly adds that little layer piece to this design, which I love. Almost like you had taken masking tape and had painted this and made a crackle background. Literally the easiest crackle ever. While I use the reverse crackle, I am adding in the supply list down below, the regular crackle background. You might notice I use it quite often. These are two of my go-tos. These are not new products. They have been around for several years now, and they continue to be go-tos for creating amazing, realistic, crackly backgrounds with ink. Now, because I used pigment ink, it was very wet, and I want that to dry. What's going to happen with the pigment ink as it dries even more than this is you can see it here. I use my heat tool, but it is going to dry to kind of look almost gray on that black cardstock, which is totally fine with me. Mostly what I was looking for was something that had tons of texture that actually isn't textured, if that makes sense. So it is really, really cool. And that is literally it. Let's go ahead and create the rest of the card. I've got another piece of black cardstock here, and I am taking sentiments from the two different sentiment stamp sets I'm using today. They are called Like Family. That is where I'm getting You Are My Sunshine and Celebrating You. Two fantastic sentiment stamp sets to add to your collection that you can use for all kinds of things. I prepped my cardstock first with a powder tool to help the embossing powder stick just to the black cardstock. I've stamped the image or the phrases, pardon me, a couple of times using my embossing ink, and then I'm sprinkling on my white embossing powder before I heat set this. And I'm just making sure that I have really good coverage, because when I stamp on a dark cardstock like this, I want my white to really pop and show up. I chose to stamp my sentiments on a separate piece of cardstock today because there are coordinating dies for every single one of these greetings. So I went ahead and die cut these. I love that there are coordinating dies. It makes adding your sentiment exactly where you want so easy. So I've kind of laid them out here on my background. That's looking good. And now I want to double check that the images that I am using from the new, and I apologize, I know I'm not saying this correctly, the new stamp set. That's what I'm going to call it since I don't know how to say it. I am kind of laying them out, and I do make a change when I go to stamp these. Instead of the two bottles, I did opt to use another bowl with a critter. For some reason, Originally I liked how that looked, but then I kind of changed my mind. So I'm actually using 2 images from the Bibimbap, probably wrong, with a little bunny image from Summer Floaties, which kind of continues to be a much used stamp set because it has a cute critter in it that doesn't have to be with a summer beachy scene, but obviously works well with the summer beachy theme. But I thought he looked cute sitting next to the bowl of food with the little piggy. Now I'm going to color all of my images in with some alcohol ink markers. I'm using Olo markers today. The colors I'm using are going to be listed down in the description below the video here on YouTube, as well as over on my blog. Using some really pretty light reds for my little piggy. I do have blending colors on my Olo markers. If you saw my video from a few days ago, a week ago, I'm not exactly sure when now, where I reorganized my markers with the 32 new colors and put my shading colors back together so it's brush tip to brush tip. Each half of the marker is an individual marker with Olo marker, so you can definitely do whatever you like there. I tend to not use the chisel tip, and so I opted to put my blending colors together, and that is working fantastic. Now I am using some greens. The first green I picked I didn't love, so I did switch to another green color combination. And I will have all of the colors kind of listed out by image for this particular card. I asked in a previous video if you prefer the voiceover or music during coloring. Most people still said the voiceover as opposed to the music, which is kind of what I suspected, but I thought I would ask. And so I will attempt to kind of keep that in. I think the coloring goes pretty quickly. There's quite a lot of coloring here. These images are fairly small. Definitely ask any questions you have regarding coloring, Olo markers, whatever that might be, down in the comments. I always like hearing from you guys and knowing what you want to see more of here on my channel. Just trying to choose my colors for all of the different little parts and pieces. I did, because I felt like there were, as always, if you're coloring critters, it's a lot of neutrals for the most part. So I used that opportunity to make my bowls for each dish kind of more bright and fun. This bowl is going to be turquoise or aqua, and the second bowl will be a nice, beautiful royal blue. Love those little pink cheeks for our little piggy there. So super sweet. Now I am going to go in with my darkest color first. I've mentioned this a few times when I'm sharing coloring here on my channel, where I will do the light and then kind of the dark and the mid-tone and go back with the light. I go back and forth, and this was one of those times where or one of those days, I guess I should say, where I opted to do more of like the dark to the light, trying to eliminate just some of that oversaturation, if you will, and kind of cut down on the coloring time too. Now I love how this looks, but I did go back to my darkest color, and I'm just going to add some little dot detail, almost like this is pottery that has some of the, you know, little bubbles, I guess, in it. I don't make pottery, so I'm probably not giving the right terms. I want to throw that out there right away, but I just was trying to add a little interest to that portion of the image, since it definitely does have more of a prominent look, since it's a bigger part of that. Let's color the bunny. He's going to sit next to that bowl. So keeping that in mind, I've got some nice light browns. I'm going to keep him pretty light. And then his cup is going to be some blues and reds. I did use some blue greens, but they are a little bit lighter and bluer than the blue greens. The blue greens that I used up above, which are more of, I would say, green and that more aqua or turquoise. The bunny is also going to get a little bit of dotted treatment, a little bit of added interest. Anything I can do to add interest to especially these small images, but I guess I shouldn't just say that. Even the bigger images, I like to do that. So kind of cutesy and fun as Mama Elephant images tend to be. And there I'm going back with my darker brown color shade and just adding a little dotted detail. You'll notice I did use my lightest brown color through the glass of his cup first. And then I will color the light blue. So it is picking up a little bit of the brown undertone from the bunny, like you're looking through a clear glass, but obviously it has some liquid in it and maybe has a tint of that bluey glass color. So after we have the little bunny all colored, it's time to move on to our third image. And this is the one I swapped instead of doing the two bottles, which I'm glad. I like this guy, I think, a little bit better for this card. And I like that there will be 3 critters in this design. To me, it just balanced out. It's a very text-heavy card. I've talked about this before, but I'm really currently into multiple areas of text. I'm kind of loving playing around with that concept. And in this case, I kind of envisioned the card in 3 blocks. So we have the top block, and then the bottom 2 has 2 blocks. Almost like a grid, I guess, if you want to think of it like that. I'm thinking of the card in different grids. So making the little soup dish here, and then I need to figure out colors for the kitty. I ended up using most of the same colors for the bunny that I use up above, but I'm going to pull in 1 shade darker for the little stripes on the kitty, and I think that just makes him perfection. So cute. So I know right now I'm trying to figure out exactly which colors I wanted to use, how I was going to tie all of those together and all of that good stuff. And so we're just gonna lay, I started with like a shade darker than what I used for the bunny, and I'm going to end with a shade darker than what I used. So it gives it a little bit different look, even though the majority of the colors are the same. So right here, you can really kind of see that. But when we go in, and I originally didn't use the darkest shade to do this, the little stripes, which I kind of like because it gives us a layered look. And I thought, oh, he looks way similar. And I thought that it was going to be darker. And I realized, oh, flip your marker over. That's where your darker shading is. So that's what I did right here, was just kind of pull that in. We'll, of course, add some little pink cheeks to our cat as well. And a little pink nose. And then we'll move on to the blues for the dish and the saucer. And again, for this, I wanted to do something different, but not, I didn't want to really incorporate a brand new color. The soup dish was red, so I didn't want to use red, which might have been what I went to. I considered pinks, but I didn't really love the idea of pink up next to the red either. And so I decided to go with more of the royal blues, as I mentioned. And we're again going to go down and lay down this dark color first, and then we will do our mid-tone and then the lightest. When I'm coloring with the Olo markers, I do try to remember to keep the caps off as I am coloring instead of pulling the cap off and putting it back on. It is a kind of a habit that I've had to break myself of from previous markers. Why I do that is when you are putting the cap on and then pulling it off, it is kind of suctioning or pulling that ink to the tip of the brush tip marker, and you don't really need to do that constantly. So while coloring a certain color or certain part of a colored image, I do try to keep the tips off of my markers. And then when I'm done, obviously put your caps on and, you know, away you go. It's not the end of the world if you don't, but I do try to do that. Plus, it's kind of handy to not have them, you know, all capped all the time. I did use the coordinating dies to die cut my images, and I feel like there might have been a little bit of stuff from my Post-it tape. I'm just rubbing that off. And let's go ahead and assemble our card. So here's the quadrants that I was talking about. We have our top, our bottom left, and our bottom right, and that is cute. I like it. Now, I did decide to take a white Jelly Roll pen and my little T-square ruler, and I am going to draw some lines. I'm going to go ahead and attach my images up at the top of my card first. I am attaching everything, including the images and the text, with foam adhesive. So there's going to be a lot of piecing together of foam adhesive here in my cards. But once I have the top portion kind of where I want it to go, I will use that T-square ruler and my white pen to draw a couple of lines to kind of show the different quadrants of the card. However, that being said, I did opt to wrap a little fun lawn fawn twine around my card, which really disguises the one line that I drew, which is okay. But as I looked at my card design, I was like, ooh, how about we add some twine? I was thinking of how can I zhuzh it up a little bit, add some fun embellishment. And that is what I came up with, because who doesn't love the beautiful new rainbow colors of lawn fawn twine? It's called hemp twine, and it's nice and thin, and there is 68 yards of fun on each spool. So we're going to add now our sentiment, and I just pieced together some foam. I am using mostly on the sentiment, the smaller, well, it's not the smaller sentiment, but it has smaller sections on the You Are My Sunshine sentiment, the small foam squares, and then the thin foam adhesive strips. Now, before I attach anything at the bottom, that little white marker was just to test if the white would show up on my background. My pigment ink is completely dry, and I want my lines to be straight, so I am using this T-square ruler. I absolutely love this ruler, and a white Jelly Roll pen to draw my lines. And you'll notice that I am placing the bottom images where they're going to go so that I have a very good idea, because I want that left section to be bigger than the right. So really simple. And now I can peel off the foam adhesive on the back and just pop him in place. It's looking so cute. And then some bigger foam squares for the remaining two greetings. I'm going to leave a little space between the two for our embellishment. Our embellishment today. I'm a huge fan of hearts. You guys, if you've been here for a while, you already know that I add hearts to all of the things. And I'm also using a black Jelly Roll pen first to add detail to the eyes on all of my critters. That just makes their faces pop. We'll also take that white pen that we used, and we're going to add little dots to cheeks, some little highlights, nothing really over the top, just a few little things here and there. I go in phases about how much white pen detail I use. I'm kind of in my more minimalistic phase, I think, at the moment, but still using it because I love what it brings to some colored images. So I'm loving this. This panel is probably 4 by 5 1/4. I didn't measure it, but it does leave a nice white border around when placed on a white card base. So prior to gluing it down to my card base, I've wrapped a little bit of this lawn trimmings twine. This is the red color, about 3 times around my panel, and I'm going to tie this into a pretty little bow, just like so. That looks adorable. And then I'm going to take the ends before I trim them, and I'm going to just knot them. And then I'm going to trim them. Kind of just a fun little decorative element at the end. And I'm going to let them hang pretty low. This is a nice thin twine, so it just gives kind of a softening effect, I suppose. That one was a little too long, so I tied another knot, and we'll just cut the other one off. Then I'm going to glue this down. This twine is thin enough. A lot of times if I'm using a twine, I pop the panel up with foam adhesive, and you could do that here. But I did find that it did not cause a bad bulk, so I just glued my panel directly to my white top fold card base and had no issues at all. I love that red against the black and then that crackle background. So hearts. I tend to use a lot of heart embellishments, and today I remembered that I have the Doodlebug stickers, the sticker hearts, the puffy shape ones, and all of the colors. I'm not sure if these are still available or not. On the package it says they were released in 2022. I will link to them if they're still available, but any kind of heart embellishment is great here. I'm going to use a combination of red and then like kind of a mustardy yellow. But I love the little heart dividing the sentiments down there in the bottom right corner. The little hearts coming up from the little piggy in the dish because he's holding a little heart. And then I loved the red, but I thought, oh, let's add one more color in. I didn't want to add a whole bunch more color. And the other color that kind of stood out to me was a yellow. I didn't really want to do a blue or a turquoise. I felt like they were maybe we already have that color pretty well represented in big, areas for the bowls. I thought about placing it there. That didn't really work. So we're going to just adjust a little bit, add a couple of these, and that is it. Thank you guys so much for joining me today for this easy Crackle background card that features the Simon Says Stamp reverse Crackle background and Mama Elephant stamps and dies. The supplies I used to create my card are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Thank you so much for joining me today for another paper crafting tutorial. I love being able to share with this incredible community of crafters. I want to give a huge shout out and special thank you to my amazing Patreon members. If you're interested in joining Patreon, please click the link in the description underneath the video here on YouTube. Patreon is a private community where you can support more of what I do. There is exclusive content, information, and behind-the-scenes content. Top-tier members will receive a handmade birthday card during your birthday month, access to D-Stash, and monthly exclusive lives, plus so much more. We would love to have you join our growing community. Please be sure to subscribe to my channel, click that like button, and don't forget to hit the notification bell to always be notified when I have a new video. Thanks for watching!